Disappointment as their team finds a way to win. Please join Book Review in welcoming author of Game 7, 1986, Ron Darling.
Wow, I mean, I used to play in front of 50,000. I'm honored. This is great. Boy, it's great to be a Mets fan right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
They have such an energy and grace and talent and fervor and chutzpah and all of it wrapped up all in one. And it's don't tell my bosses, but this is one of those years you can work for free. I really just want to watch them do their thing because, I was 25 and 26 years old 30 years ago when we were lucky enough to win a world championship. And, we've had it a long time, and I'm really happy that, I played with Mookie and Straw and Mex and Doc and Kid and all those guys. But we've had it long enough. It's their turn. I want to see David Wright have his chance. I want to see these young pitchers just get better and better and better. I want to see what car Cespedes comes to the game in. Most important thing. So, this book is interesting in a sense that it's my second book, and the first one was about, I took an inning out of my career, some good and some bad, and kind of walked you through what happens within that inning, as a professional athlete. This one is a little different. I'll tell you how it started. It started 30 years ago. I started Game 7. If you try to make if you're an 8-year-old kid and you want to be an aspiring golfer, and it's 8 o'clock at night in the summer and you're by yourself and you're trying to make a 3-foot putt, you're making it to win the US Open, aren't you? Yeah. If you're a basketball player, you're shooting from the free throw line, you're trying to make it, hoping someday that in the Final Four, the NBA Final, you make that to be the champion. Well, for a Major League pitcher, it's pitching Game 7 and have a chance to pitch your team to glory. I got my chance, and I kind of fumbled it away. And I wanted to know why. Now, after the game is done, of course, Sid Fernandez, who was by far the best Hawaiian in that game, he pitched great. Jesse Orozco throws his glove in the air. And all I had was, like everyone else who was here, that is here tonight, except for you young people, it's just joy, glee at having a championship and running on the field and feeling as close as you can ever can to other guys on your team. And then we had the parade the next day. 3 million New Yorkers are there at the Canyon of Heroes to give us the key to the city, one of the greatest feelings I'll ever have in my life. But then 48 hours later, I was alone in my apartment and I was trying to mull over all that had happened. My parents and brothers who had stayed with me through the playoffs were now gone. I was by myself. And I remember saying this phrase, what the hell happened? First game I went 7 innings, gave up an unearned run. The Mets lost. Fourth game I beat the Red Sox in Fenway Park. I'm from Massachusetts, so that's a big deal for me. Shut them out over 7 innings. And in the game of my life, when all is supposed to be special, I came up woefully short. And it stuck in my craw for a long, long time. And I thought that organically it would go away at some point. And it didn't. And I've done this job now, this is my 11th year, being able to watch Mets games, and pardon me for being in your kitchens or living rooms way too often. I just honestly thought that it's not a big deal, it'll go away, the Mets won the game, what are you so worried about? And it never did go away. And I had 2 options. I could sit on someone's couch for $150 an hour and try to get it out, or write a book for you guys to read. I chose the latter. And it's really an exploration, I thought, into trying really to decipher what we think of professional athletes. We tend to think of them as humanoids, almost immortal in the way they go about their business. How can they fail? We know they're human, but they're not really supposed to be. And it walks you through some of the insecurities that we all have, whether you are a 9-to-5-er like my dad was, or you're a professional athlete like I was. And in it has some great anecdotes about a lot of things. I think I pay some homage to the Boston Red Sox, who were so good in that series, and we barely squeaked by them. I mean, it's thought of as the Buckner series because the ball went between his legs, but in reality, they were a really good team that had a great series against the Angels and gave us everything we could try to compete against. And you know, the other reason I wrote it is that I think a lot of people, not you folks, of course, but a lot of people think that the World Series in '86 ended with the ball between Buckner's legs. There was another game to be played. I played it with my Mets teammates, and I was thinking on that night 30 years ago, where this book idea started, that, you know, at some point, coming forward to where I am today, you know, I'm lucky. You people treat me incredibly great for who I was. Treat me incredibly great for who I am today, being able to call Met games with my good friends Gary and Keith. But, you know, life can change and on one game in professional sports. You know, what if the Mets didn't come back and my lineage or the legend would be that the only championship for the Mets was 1969 and that we had come up short in '86. Maybe I would be thought of or looked at differently. Thank God it didn't happen. But it just goes to show you in life that things are fleeting, things can happen that are out of your control, and watch out what you wish for. You better come through when it happens. So thank you so much for coming. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign to whoever you want me to sign it to. Take a picture, we'll do whatever you guys want to do. You can ask a question about the team. And let me open it up, because there might be a couple of questions maybe you have about whatever.
I would just like to, I would like to thank you. Really, really thank you for embracing every game that I watch and listen to. You just are absolutely wonderful. But I do wonder sometimes, some of your vocabulary brings to former English teachers. I wonder sometimes your vocabulary, everybody understand it?
She really asked a really good question, is that my vocabulary during the game. She really makes a great point. The most difficult thing I find in doing the games is that I do struggle. Considering my background, it shouldn't be a struggle, but I really struggle with finding the right words to say. And occasionally I say words that aren't even words. It's happened many times before. But it's always in search of finding the right way to say it. And I find it very funny. My family thinks it's hilarious that I do television for a living because I don't say anything at home. I'm the quietest person you'd ever meet. So they think it's hilarious that I make a living speaking. But I was raised in one of those homes where no one said anything. And I'm used to being very, very quiet, and I think that works against me. But I will say, in game, when I don't make a faux pas, it's really because I'm trying to search for the right word to say. Here's an example. So Santana, you guys all know, threw the no-hitter for the Mets, and while we were in it, Gary Cohen, rightfully so, was talking about the pitch count because it was so high. There's no way they're going to let him complete it. About the seventh inning or so, you know, I had this feeling that it really didn't matter what his pitch count was. He was of such renown and such royalty that he was going to be allowed to finish it. But at some point, I didn't want to step on Gary's toes because Gary really was making the right point. No way he could finish with a pitch count. But in my gut, I felt like they're definitely going to let him finish. And I remember when I was a kid, my brother and I would always take there was a train that ran by our house, and we would always walk over the bridge to school because it was 15 minutes quicker, much to my mom's dismay. And we loved that train. We used to put pennies on the train, and they get squashed, and we put them in our pocket. And at some point, I said to Gary, Gary, you can talk about pitch count all you want. This train's rolling, and it's going to keep rolling. And that just came from me and my brother walking to school. So I put a lot of thought in what I'm going to say. Sometimes the words elude me, but it's not for lack of trying.
That's what I meant though. I meant to do whatever is absolutely marvelous.
Oh, well, thank you very much. This is an English teacher. We'll take all that back.
What do you think about the National League going to the designated hitter?
Well, it's going to happen. It's much to my dismay. I can't stand the thought of not having two different kinds of baseball. I think it works nicely. We see now with the replay rules and everything else that every single time you tamper with perfection, you're taking away something from the game. A lot of fans, especially Mets fans, come from a great ancestor, or people who love the Brooklyn Dodgers, love National League Baseball, and they came to the Mets because the teams moved out west. They were told that you're going to be a National League fan, and when the Mets became a team, this is a team you're rooting for whether you like it or not. And I think it would be a shame. When I watch the National League game, I just love it. I would never think that I could be a manager, but in the American League I could.
Ron, I just want to say, I think you're one of the classiest Mets that we've ever had on, I think. I have a question, and I don't know if you know the answer, and if you do know it, if you can answer it, but I've always wondered, Game 6 of the National League Division Series, when you guys were down in Houston, at one point in the game when Jesse Orosco was on the mound, and I think Keith Hernandez called a timeout, and he walked up to the mound. You know what he said to Jesse Orosco?
I'm trying to see how many young kids you have. I think what happened is that, and we no longer, and this is going to really dampen everything that happens this year. We no longer have number 8 around, and it's sad that he won't be here to enjoy the 30th anniversary of the team. But he was great, and he was forceful, and I know he had given Jesse some instructions, and let's just say Keith took charge and changed those instructions. Very much like he does in the booth.
I just wanted to know, you and Keith, you guys have been in the booth for 11 years now. Have you guys ever, I know you guys stay around the game that way, but have you guys ever given it any thought on maybe becoming pitching coach? That's not mine, by the way.
You're way too cool for that song.
Get back in the dugout or anything?
Yeah, I can't speak for Keith, and certainly I know that none of us have been asked by the Orange and Blue, but I will say I've been asked a couple times to get out of the booth and do something else on the field. And I would like to say that I would have the talent to instruct young men. I would have the patience to instruct young men. I have neither. I wish I could say I do. On the second part, I think that I think it's very, very difficult to keep players that are making $20 million a year motivated to play for a manager who's making 1/20th of that. And then secondly, and maybe more importantly, is just that it's a really, really difficult job today, and there's a lot of eyeballs on you. There's a lot of criticism. Not afraid of that, you guys have got me ready. I can do anything. But I just think that I love what I do. And at the end of the day, I sit next to two people I really admire, really like, and call friends. I watch a baseball game, and someone pays me for it. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And plus, I don't know, if you've ever worn a uniform, I don't want to wear a uniform anymore. So, I don't want to put a hat on, I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. How about a couple more questions so then I can sign for this book?
What kind of response are you getting from players, ex-teammates about your discussion in the book about jar and clubhouse?
Yeah. In the book, I have a little aside because the book is so, I guess, it can become narcissistic at times because I'm trying to describe my feelings about not coming through in an important way. And I thought was going to be a very kind of funny aside about amphetamines and things that were in the game in the 80s. And the reason I addressed it is because a lot of players my age love to talk about the steroid era, love to talk about bat flips, like the game today is not the game we used to play when it was beautifully honest and true. I'm kind of sick of it, to tell you the truth. My generation of players did a lot of things to try and get an advantage. Other generations have done that also, whether you go all the way back to the spitball to whatever. The blowback from my teammates, the guys that probably dabbled in that, they're probably not as happy. The guys who didn't don't care. I just wanted to make sure that there's not we run into all of this talk about, when we played it, it was perfect. That's BS. The way the guys are playing it now, it's really, really good and at an unbelievably high level. Now, is it faultless? Of course it's not. But it never was faultless then either.
Yeah, I'm just wondering who you think out of these young arms they have now has the highest ceiling.
Boy, that's tough. Who has the highest ceiling of all these young arms? Who's got me on YouTube, right? You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about pitching staffs is that in the past, really great pitching staffs, and for old timers like myself and anyone older than me, you would see these staffs and they'd have this amazing versatility. They have a couple of power arms, one guy who had a good changeup, one had a good curveball, someone had a screwball or whatever. There was strength in their versatility. These guys are strength with their strength. Never has there been a staff when Wheeler comes back after the All-Star break where everyone throws 95 or more. But they do have their versatility, and they do have their different characteristics. You have, like Matt to me is, like a bulldozer. He just wants to, if he could tackle you, he'd probably tackle you instead of strike you out. DeGrom just like Dancing with the Stars. He's just like having fun out there, mixing it in back and forth. Syndergaard, he's just, because of his age, because of his maturity, and how things have come so quickly, it's hard to bet against him. Your own Steven Matz, Long Island Steven Matz, hides the ball as well as any lefty I've ever seen. Another guy that throws 95. And the last time the Mets had a rookie left-hander and wore number 32, who won Rookie of the Year, John Matlack. So he has that going for him. And Wheeler when he comes back. And we all enjoy, I know we all enjoy, when Big Sexy Bartolo. It's funny, there used to be a phrase, right? And hopefully take this the right way. It was chicks dig the long ball, right? Pitching always works. It worked in my day. I was lucky enough to pitch with a great staff. This is the greatest group of arms I've ever seen fully developed to take charge in the history of the game. In the history of the game in my lifetime.
Are the Wilpons going to pay them though?
You know what's great? I always get that question. I always get that question. It doesn't matter where I go. It could be a bar mitzvah, it could be a little league dinner, it could be whatever. You'd have to ask them. I know. I would say that in reality, it's going to be impossible to pay all those guys, unless you find the pitchers a point where that you want them here, you want to get them through free agency, you want a little cost certainty, and you can find that number which will make them really happy. Jacob deGrom's going to have a baby like as we speak. As soon as the baby's born, go to him with a contract. Anyone who just has a baby wants cost certainty. Couple more.
Last year, everybody looked pretty good. Probably the low point was Wilmer Flores crying in the San Diego game. When did you first see it coming together as an insider for the team?
When did I first see it coming together with the team? I think it was 2 nights later when Wilmer hit the walk-off against the Nationals. And the reason I say that, and doesn't happen to me very often. First game of the season, I always get goosebumps. I didn't this year because ESPN was in the game. When I do the playoffs, I get goosebumps. You know, when they start to sing the national anthem, I'm like, what the heck am I doing in this booth? I want to be downstairs, you know? And last year, when he hit the walk-off, prior to that, he had an at-bat. And Gary was describing it, and he had a chance to drive in the winning run. He didn't. And Gary said Mets and Nationals still tied. Flores doesn't come through in the 10th or whatever. Or Wilmer doesn't get the game-winning hit. And as we were going to break, because I know it came out because my producer yelled at me, I said, not yet, he hasn't. And when he came up and hit the game, a walk-off home run, you know, I think you guys have probably heard from him, he had never hit one ever, you know, Little League, any kind of baseball, Little League. I mean, he left when he was 16 years old to come, so he didn't have a lot of time to do it. But he had never had one of those moments. And I was watching him run around, and I felt a little emotional, like, boy, what a great thing for this kid. And then he got to home plate, and he picked at the Mets jersey. So the Mets were written, they had their blue jerseys on, and he was picking at it. And I was like, what does he do? Oh, he's saying, I'm still a Met. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a baseball field. And if you are, like I am, a guy that used to wear the orange and blue, I don't know, there's half dozen moments that make you proud to be a New York Met. That's one of the 6 now.
I always heard that the slider was the toughest on a pitcher's arm. And now Syndergaard's throwing a lot of sliders.
Are you an orthopedic surgeon? Yeah, what's up with that? I think literally all the pitches are tough on anybody's arm. If you know the physics of pitching, you know, we've done a lot, baseball has done a lot to strengthen the shoulder. And I remember when I was a player, we had a trainer, Tom McKenna was his name. He had been in the Korean War, and he had dated someone Korean that taught him a Korean form of Tai Chi that he brought back with a weighted ball that all us Mets pitchers, when we played for the Mets, used to do religiously. And it was just the alphabet with a 3-pound ball that we did very slowly. None of us ever had any shoulder problems. And it was because that was the genesis of all the stuff we do for shoulders now. So you very rarely hear of someone hurting their shoulder because they have the ability to build the back of the rotator cuff. Well, this little ligament right here, there's nothing you can do. No, you can build your forearm, wrist, hands, tricep, bicep, all right? You can do all of that stuff. But at some point, the ligament is a tiny little ligament. And, you know, the pressure you put on it, there's really nothing you can do. Now, you're hoping that Syndergaard, who is, I think he's cut out of marble or something. I don't know how you get like that. But you're hoping that his body, because he's so strong and big, is going to be able to withstand the punishment that it takes to make 30 starts a year. In my day, when you took the mound, you would pitch and you would throw 85 to 90%. There's a fastball there. I'm going to sink it here. Here's a little curve, change up, and that's how you pitch. If you had a guy with a 1-1 tie in the 7th inning, guy on third base, here comes the good fastball. Here's 100%. Boom. You do that a half dozen times a game. These guys are shot out of a cannon. They are not even thinking about, you know what they have? 2 hours. You know, this is like a Frank Sinatra show. You know, I'm here for 2 hours and that's it. And they come out like they're shot out of a cannon and they're throwing as hard as they can for 2 hours. And if that means 5 innings, that means 7 innings, it means 8 1/3, whatever it means is what you're going to get. So, arm injuries are going to happen forever. They have a better way of diagnosing them. Let's just hope that at 6'6", 255 pounds of all muscle is enough to get him through a brilliant career. Because if it is, I know that Harvey's Harvey. DeGrom is DeGrom. Matz is on his way. Wheeler's coming back. But this kid is so young and so big and so strong. It reminds me a little bit of Dwight when Dwight was 19 years old. And Dwight was the best pitcher I ever saw. Okay, one more. That's my boss, by the way. You guys,
yeah, I'd like to commend you on your job in the documentary 5 Days in Flushing. I watched it last night. It was great.
Didn't know I was going to be in it, by the way. I'm asked all the time to do like the voiceovers for stuff, and I'll do it. And then I was in that thing. I just saw it, and I'm really happy that I play a big part in it. I had no idea.
What's your favorite memory of in the booth?
See this guy with the yellow
Mets game?
follows the Mets religiously.
I have a lot of them from 2006 when everything was magical. Sometimes when things fall apart, like 07 and 08, even bad can sometimes be good in a booth as far as watching it happen. But I think it was 09 or 2010. I'm not sure. I think it's 09. Keith, Gary, and I were bored because we knew the season was gone. And there were 50 games left, and we decided that we would play a game that every night we would mention states in order on the broadcast. See, no one knows the story. We do this stuff all the time. You should try to figure it out. It's really fun. So Delaware was our first game. Very easy. There were a couple of Delaware players in baseball that year. And we got to Arkansas. And I would write it at the top of my scorecard to make sure we didn't forget. So we get to the last out of the game. The Mets are winning. Frankie Rodriguez is in the bat. I look at my scorecard and I see Arkansas, and I know we have not said it. So here comes the pitch. Gary calls it. There's a foul back, so we have a chance. I remember during the game we were kidding with Kevin Burkhardt that you can either be a Bruce Springsteen or a Bon Jovi fan. He's from Jersey. And he said he was a Bon Jovi fan, and we made fun of him because we're all Springsteen fans. So I said, Kevin, did we sway you? Or